I've tried to create some bit of activities during my session, and I would enjoy us to really take part in it, in the activity that I will create, that I will talk about during my session. Well, if you can answer it well, you can unmute. If people can unmute to speak, I always enjoy it more when it comes to virtual training. For us, we've been working with a lot of organizations for over 10 years with regards to performance management, and that has given us a very wide exposure and knowledge into how it works in different industries, cutting across the public sector and the private sector. We've been instrumental to developing strategy performance management system for different organizations. And I can categorically say that there's no one size fits all itself when it comes to performance management. You can't copy and paste. You need to design to suit your organization and as to what you want. But I always say this at the beginning of my session when I want to talk about performance management. And that's why I love your topic, rethinking performance management. Now, what has happened to us is we've had a myopic view a lot of the time of what performance management is all about. And that's the first thing I need to demystify. When we talk about performance management, the first perception we all have is we're talking about employee appraisal. But I must tell you right now, right here, that performance appraisal is not performance management on the line. Performance appraisal is not performance management. Performance appraisal is just an aspect of performance management. That's the first thing I need to demystify. If you really want to rethink performance management, then you're not talking about performance appraisal. That's why I'm almost certain that almost 100% of everybody that is here is a HR professional. Because when we talk about performance management, we automatically think it's about HR. No, it's not. Performance appraisal, which is employee appraisal, may be able to sit with HR, but when you talk about performance management in its context, it cuts across the whole organization. It cuts across your processes, your strategy, your departmental, your organizational successes. So it's not just about employee appraisal, but to be able to appraise the whole system. So it's beyond HR. And one of the reasons why we as HR professionals are having challenges in driving performance management is because we feel it is just us. So I've had situations where organizations have invited me to come and do performance management training for their employee, for their staff, and all the people I will see in class are just members of the HR team. And I tell them, you keep creating bottleneck for yourself. As HR, we are not supposed to be the one to sit down and set KPIs for everybody in the organization. Everybody within the organization must have the competency to do it. So you don't set and just dump on them to use that. That's why it always fails. That's why we don't get our results, because we are thinking of it in a very small aspect. But it's high time, like you said, for us to begin to rethink it, because it's huge. And what is performance management all about? And I will tell you, it's all about this. It's about improvement. What you cannot measure, you can't manage, and what you cannot manage, you cannot improve. The primary essence of building a performance management system in your organization is strictly for improvement. Now, you can have some add-ons, promotion, bonuses, compensation, sanctions, PIP. They are add-ons, but never lose the focus. Like this for improvement. How do we improve as an organization? How do individuals improve themselves? And before you can talk about improvement, before you can talk about anything performance management, you need to be able to measure. And I mean, when I mean measure, you need to be able to measure empirically. Most of the major defect in performance system today is the inability to track performance empirically. So we are subjected performance to perception of how I feel. And that's why there is always eye service, most especially in the public sector, and people do eye service even in the public sector, because your performance is highly dependent on your supervisor. Now, if you want to rethink performance management should never be dependent on the line manager or the supervisor. Your performance is strictly dependent on what you do, whether you have done it or not. So usually, we are too subjective in the way we analyze our performance, and then it has to, and that's why today we are used to the 1 to 5 rating. So I'm going to be shaking a lot of the table and demystifying a lot of things. This is already a perception-based appraisal, which means I choose what I rate you, 2, 3, 4, or 5, without any justification as to why I rate you that way. Or we have what we call recency error, that I'm appraising you by what happened towards the point of appraisal, quarterly appraisal, biannual appraisal, without putting into consideration what has happened from the beginning of the year, because it is highly subjective. Until we remove subjectivity from appraisal, we will still be getting the bad result that we are getting from it. So if I want to rethink performance management, you need to start making it highly objective. Oh, attend to customer queries on time or inquiries on time. What's the definition of on time? Oh, promptly. What's the definition of promptly? So promptly to me might be 5 minutes. Why promptly to my boss is 60 seconds. So it has to be measurable. You need to agree that every inquiry that comes in, you must respond within 5 minutes. That's, you have made it empirical. So I want to check how many inquiries came in a particular period and see how many you responded to within that 5 minutes. When I do that, it's your score. It doesn't, I mean, that person we see his results. So it's not a matter of whether your bosses like your face or not. Until we take that away from performance management, it's still doomed to always fail. Until we take that subjectivity out as much as possible in itself. And of course, we always talk about the behavior, that's another aspect. But in the main function of what people do, people should be able to be measured. And there's nothing that you do within an organization that you cannot measure empirically. Everything can be measured empirically. And until you begin to measure empirically, there's nothing to manage. I mean, I always give this analogy. If you want to cook in your house, you want to cook rice, you want to cook anything, you measure it. You're not just going to say, let me pour the rice from the sack and cook it and gauge it with your eyes. I think this should be enough. It's either it's not enough or it's a wastage or you waste it. Or even if by chance it was exact enough, you can't even repeat it, you can't sustain it. You try it the next time, it's likely to fail. All right, so why do we measure it? Because you don't want to waste it. So you use your Derica, you use your thing. So if you can't measure things, you can't manage them. And what you cannot manage, you can't improve on it. You can't get better at it. So if, for instance, you just say attend promptly. Oh, no, I mean, you don't usually attend to customers promptly. Who defines it promptly? Your supervisor defines it promptly. So I'm scoring you 2/5. Maybe an incident just happened towards that appraisal period, and that is used to judge you. But if you have set a timeline to it, and we begin to check against that time, if we find out that we are not meeting this time, we go back to review our process and improve on it. BPI, what we call BPI, business process improvement, then takes place. How can we keep getting better at what we do? So you must, first of all, you want to rethink, and it's going to be a whole lot. So unlearn and relearn this, to be able to say that we need to have a different approach to performance management. It's not going to come easy. And I face that all the time. I face that challenge when I talk about this. It's about improvement. All right. Let me play this short video. Please let me know if you can hear the volume.
Scorecards, dashboards, objectives, KPIs are all examples of conceptual tools that can be used to monitor and improve performance. KPI selection, data gathering, and performance reporting are processes that make use of such tools. Software such as Microsoft Excel and hardware such as whiteboards are tangible tools that streamline the above-mentioned processes and conceptual tools. A key aspect is, how should they be connected to an integrated manner so that we make the most out of them? The solution is the configuration of an integrated system that links all such tools, processes, underlying infrastructure, and responsible persons for using them. This is the essence of performance architecture, designing functional performance systems. To be successful in building performance systems, you need both quality components and a smart architecture of connections and interdependencies. Some of the key building blocks of performance systems are brought together from different disciplines: strategy, performance management, project management, and process management. They are destination, mission statement, why you exist, vision statement, where you want to be, value statements, beliefs that influence organizational behavior, core strategy, value drivers, characteristic of operational activities that reflect how value is generated for stakeholders, objective, specific reflection of what we need to achieve as part of our journey towards vision attainment, goal, clustering tool for objectives linked around the same theme. Measurement, metric, quantifiable expression of something we can measure. KPI, metric reflecting performance. Target, specific level we want to achieve in relation to a KPI. Action, portfolio, collection of all projects. Program, clustering tool for projects linked around the same theme. Initiative or project, activity with start dates and specific outputs to be generated. Milestone, main task stages within a project. Processes, succession of steps in delivering outputs of day-to-day operations. Understanding such tools is an important prerequisite for designing their integration within performance systems.
All right, so now what the video has shown is the performance management system architecture. And if you could see so many things are involved when we talk about performance management, just beyond the appraiser. Appraiser is just one aspect of the whole performance management system. But let me pick our brain a little in this area when we talk about performance measurement and performance management. So I'm asking us this question. Which of the following actions are related to performance measurement only? A, selection of KPIs. B, reallocate resources. C, collect data. D, understand the reasons behind performance. And E, calculate KPIs. Anyone? Please kindly unmute. I want to avoid going to my chat every now and then. You can unmute and give an answer, or you can put it in the chat box. That's fine. I can see a lot of people tilting towards all of the above. All right, you can note your answers. Let's move on. You can keep dropping it, and then you can also note your answers down. I can see C, the E. All right, so let me give us the answer. It's A, C, and E. So the concept is quite simple, and this is the concept. I'm sure we can still remember this thing called Venn diagram. It's like a Venn diagram. So here you see management, and here you see measurement. Now, what I've simply done is to make us see the relationship and the difference between performance measurement and performance management. Now, for everybody that I picked all of the above, you would have been right if he was talking about management. All of this are all in performance management, A, B, C, D, E. So that's the difference. Measurement is a subset of management. So what is in measurement is in management, but what is in management is not in measurement. All right. So, and this explains it further. Measurement is a sub-process of performance management. That's what measurement is. It's a sub-process. It means that there's nothing to manage if you have not measured. So even though management looks big, performance management, you see that subset, performance measurement, the moment you get it wrong, everything fails. Every blessed thing fails. The moment you get the figures wrong, the numbers wrong, every other thing does not work. Every other thing does not work because it's going to be based on that data that you present. Now, the measurement is what deals with tracking and evaluation. It is that human endeavor that we use in identifying metrics, collecting data, processing them. That's all about data that you want to process. All right. And part of the things you'll find in it, and this is why I always talk about this selection of KPIs. KPI is one of the best tools that is used in performance management system today that makes a performance management system empirical, data-driven. Because with KPIs, you begin to collect data. Your KPI is useless if you don't have data to back it up. So it must be empirical in nature. Then you must document it. Very much missing in so many organizations. We don't document data and we fail to always do a performance comparison with even the appraiser that we do. How often do we compare people's performance within 3 to 5 years? How did he do? What was this person's performance in 2020, in 2021, 2022? Has that been an improvement or a decline in these employees' performance? It's documentation that we to be able to do predictive analysis. That's when you can do analysis, do your data analysis. That you don't document, you cannot analyze. And then that's what helps in your presentation of reports. No, why it is important. I'm sure we're familiar with the dashboard of a car, right? That has so I mean, if you've ever experienced driving a car where the 4 gauge is not working, if anybody has experienced it, how would have they experienced it? When you don't have that dashboard to give you the accurate data of where your fuel is. It's just pointing to full, whereas your fuel is empty. Come to think about it, that you're driving to work to your office in the morning and your car is working perfectly, no sound, smooth drive, smooth work, but all of a sudden your dashboard is no more responding. It's not giving you any data. What will you do? I'm sure a lot of us, instead of the action is to park your car and probably hit the dashboard with your hand. It's something that we always do as Nigerians anyways. Or I've asked this question and some lady said, oh, we'll call our husband to come and carry their car. You know, so many answers came. Okay, so I was trying to explain the concept of the dashboard in relation to the performance of the car. Now, if our dashboard is not working, but the car is working perfectly well, I'm sure most of us will not drive. You may not even be able to take the car to the office. You want to park it and you want the mechanic to choose it, to come and check it. But why do we do that? Because we do not have access to data. We can't measure the performance of the car. You don't know the temperature. You don't know the fuel level. You don't know anything, your tire pressure. You don't know anything. So it poses a threat of anything can happen to your car, whether your oil is high or low, or the engine can get knocked. But here we are, we run organizations without data. We run the country without data, without checking. Now, you can imagine, now that's what makes the car performance agile, the dashboard. The agility part of it is that you can measure as it is happening. That's what the dashboard provides. And you can see in the earlier video that I showed that as an organization, you need to use both the scorecard and the dashboard. The scorecard is always eye level. That's the eye level result, like in a game of football. That the scoreboard shows you 1-0, 0-0, 3-0. But here you are, there is a dashboard that provides real-time data about ball possessions, how many corner kicks, how many throw-ins, how many fouls, all right? How many shots on target, how many shots on goals. Those ones happen in real time, and the football manager, the coach, uses that information to take decision, to manage his team, to manage his pattern of play, not just the final scorecard that we then see at the end of the game. So when you build a system that allows you to check all these things, like a dashboard of a car, that's how you need to build your performance system in an organization, that you can see how things are happening in real time. For instance, you are talking about you must attend to customer queries within 5 minutes. You're not going to wait till end of the year to check whether you were meeting that target or not. That's a failure, because end of the year, there's nothing you can do about it. Those are KPIs that sit on your dashboard. Do you even want to check on a daily basis how many of these kind of inquiries came in today? How many did we respond to within 5 minutes? So you need to be able to know the KPIs that are on your dashboard and the ones on your scorecard. The KPIs on your scorecard can be your financial, how much you made at the end of the day. But the kind of how many calls, for instance, you call to sell. The ones on your dashboard is the calls, the numbers of calls that are made on a daily basis. You don't wait till the end of the year or end of the month to check whether, oh, we're supposed to be making 100 calls to sell. You now wait till the end of the month or quarterly to check whether the person was making the 100 calls per day. No, you don't do it that way. What you do is, those are the kind of KPIs you want to check on a daily basis, how many calls were made, because it's a leading indicator to whether you will make money on it. I'm just trying to give a generic example. So you need to be able to build. Now, when we talk about performance management itself, that is that integrated, I call it in the integrated capability of an organization to deliver sustainable success. That we are successful and we can sustain, we can repeat it. And this can be done, only be done by improving the performance. You can see improving coming here again. The performance of systems and people, not just the people, but the system as well. Not just talking about appraising the people. How many of us that have SOPs even conduct appraisals for our SOPs? Does our SOPs have KPIs? Do you have appraisal sessions to appraise how your processes are working? Because it's a combination of both. You can have fantastic people, but with a wrong process, you won't get your results. How many of us are familiar with these sports? Formula One race. I even want to check my chat for answers here. During the Formula One race, there's what we call the pit call. All right. The pit call is when the driver has to change his 4 tires. All right, during a race. All right, it changes his 4 tires. Now, the question is, how long do you think it takes to change the 4 tires during a race? Okay, I can see 60 seconds. Almost said 60 seconds. Yes, who else? How long do you think it takes? That's a minute. Less than a minute. 50 seconds. Now, you see the challenge and kind of what we need to start rethinking and changing. Now, when you say less than a minute can be 59 seconds. It can be 49 seconds. We need to start building that ability to be as empirical as possible. All right. So if we tell our subordinates, say, respond to customer inquiries in less than a minute. So do we say, how do we then rate people? Somebody responds in 5 seconds, somebody responds in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. How do you rate them? All right. Less than 59 seconds. Less than 59 seconds is still very generic. 58 seconds is less than 59 seconds. 55 seconds is less than 59 seconds. All right. 20 seconds is less than 59 seconds. So you've left it open-ended in itself. Well, Peter said 3 seconds. In actual fact, the world record today is 1.82 seconds. That's the world record to change the 4 tires. Now, if you are in the race and you can't change your tires in 2 seconds, you cannot win the race. If you can't change the 4 tires in 2 seconds, you can't win the race. So it's not about Hamilton. Hamilton is a person, is a fantastic driver. He's a good driver. But Hamilton lost his last race in 2021 to Max because of change of tires. And he lost it in just less than 2 seconds. He lost the race. So you can be a fantastic driver, but if your process does not support you, you can't get the results. So it's about performance of systems and people, not just the people alone that we focus attention on to appraise, but also the system to work to support the people. So it's an integrated capability. That's why it's integrated. The organization must have that capability. So you now see the reasons why to drive an agile performance management system in your organization goes beyond just you, the HR. You need to get everybody involved. They need to understand this. They need to be able to drive this itself. All right. Let me just show us this video here. Let me show this. Okay, let me show this. These are world records. It keeps improving. That's what we have. This is red blue, dynamic travel. Maybe it's in 1.98 seconds. The 4 tires were changed. So this was the old world record. This record has been broken. This one that you are seeing, the record has actually been broken. This was 1.92 seconds. Used to be the old record for massa, all right? But this record is broken now. So the new record is 1.82 seconds itself. Now, when we talk about performance management, what do we find there? Understand the reasons behind performance. I've highlighted two things, and I'm going to talk about them in red. We allocate resources, start project initiative, engage and motivate employees towards growth achievement, and then predictive analysis and business intelligence. These are the things in measure management. And you can only be able to do this management if your measurement had worked appropriately and had worked the way you want it to work. That's when we can do this in regards to management. All right. Now, I'm still going to talk about those two things in red as we go further. But first, let me be able to say this. If you want to rethink your performance management system, this is where you start from. All right. Enough of just appraising your employees without connecting it to the organization. So what you find at the end of the day is you find a huge disconnect between employee appraisal and organizational appraisal. And we see that happen a lot of time. But after conducting your appraisal, because our appraisal system itself is already highly subjective, and then there's eye service, people rate their employee, their subordinates well, and you can see that people are performing so well. But in correlation to the performance of the organization, no, the organization has not hit its own target. But here we are, people are 80, 90 and above, and the organization is barely doing 50% performance in itself. In order to solve this problem, the first thing you need to do is you need to first of all go back to the organization. What's organizational focus? It means you need to have the organizational strategy. That's what we call the strategy definition. And it's so unfortunate that today, almost every organization does strategy session. We go for retreats, end of the year, beginning of the year. And when I see the way we conduct our retreats are converted to mere, someone is raising your hand. Please hold on to the end of the session and you can ask your questions. The retreat is turned to a simple seminar or workshop. Now, I need to emphasize this when you're formulating strategy session, when you're conducting retreat. Enough of inviting 2, 3, 4 speakers to your retreat. That is not a retreat, that's a workshop. You can do that normally. You can do town hall meeting, knowledge sharing session, and invite people. Strategy sessions, retreats are meant for strategic intent, stretch sessions, where you are not going to discuss even operational matters. You are coming to discuss the future of the organization, where the organization wants to be in 5 years. So it's not about inviting 3, 4, 5 speakers and allow people, your employees, to be taking notes. That's not a strategy session. That's not a retreat strategy session. That's a workshop or a seminar, as the case may be. But when you're doing your strategy definition, you must build it. Now, I have seen so many strategies in Nigeria today developed by different organizations, which I have worked on. And I've been responsible for building strategy. I led the strategy session for CIPM in the last 6 years. I've been leading that. And we do strategy, fantastic strategy. But our major problem is always execution. There are no execution plans for our strategy. One of the Harvard Business Review states that only 1 out of every 10 organizations execute their strategy. Fantastic strategy, but no execution, because we don't build execution plan and we don't build communication plan. At the end of a strategy session, even the things you arrive at sit with the management team. Other employees in the organization don't even know what is in the strategy document. So they don't even know why they're coming to the office. They just come to the office, do whatever they want to do, and they go home, and that's all. And you pay them their salary. They don't even know how their work connects to the strategy. GF Kennedy at the time visited NASA and he saw a janitor. He asked the janitor what his role was at NASA. And the janitor says his role is to get astronauts into space. So the janitor understands his role, that it's beyond just mopping the floor and cleaning the floor. He knows the implication of not doing his job, how it can crash the overall goal of the existence of NASA. How many of our employees today can you ask, what is your role in this office, that can link his daily role to what your organization wants to achieve? You can go and do an opinion poll when you get to the office to see, and that is to tell you that your performance system is far, far behind if you can't achieve that result. So when you build the execution plan, you must begin to measure and then take management decision. Then it's a cycle. Strategies are not static. It's cyclical in nature, and you keep going around that cycle like that. So when we talk about these two things, understanding the reason behind performance and engaging employees, I particularly pick those two things to reanalyze for us. Now, what does it take to understand the reason behind performance? It means that as a management team, management person, you must have the skills to read performance results correctly. You must understand the reasons behind performance. Note, I did not say understand the reasons behind bad performance, because that's usually what we do. It's only when things are not working that we want to ask why it is not working. But when things are working, you also need to ask yourself the question, how did we achieve it? All right. I'll give an example. There's always a problem in sales department in virtually every organization. You give someone a target of 100 million, and the person comes and brings 110 million. He's in trouble for bringing 110 million. The next target for him is 150 million. Without analyzing how he achieved this 110 million, it could be a one-off. So we now create another benchmark, and then the person does not meet it. He then meets 90 million. Because he would have met 90 million or 100 million based on what I've given him, but the extra 10 he made on it was just something that just came all of a sudden, that wasn't planned for. But we don't come back to understand the reason behind this performance. All we want to do is increase the target. It's always a wrong approach to target setting, and that is common with a lot of organizations today. All right, you must be able to link processes to performance results. I've talked about, for instance, in the case of Formula One, how does the process of changing the four tires support the driver in winning the race? So you must look at your processes within the organization, your financial processes, pay processes, vendor payment, your HR processes. How does this support performance results of the people within the organization? As HR, what's your turnaround time in attending to inquiries from other members of staff? Your IT department, what's your downtime that you must not exceed in 24 hours? These are things you need to begin to measure as it affects the performance of the people. All right, and you must be able to establish that relationship. And we're talking about motivating employees. Your workforce must understand and find value in the goals the organization is pursuing. So you can't afford to have your strategy definition and you keep it amongst the management team. It's on their system. Nobody else can see it. So people just come to work for what? They don't even know what they're working towards, what goal the organization is pursuing. So they get to do what they feel like. And then we don't grow as an organization. They must understand how they're expected to contribute to the achievement of the goals. It's important to be able to do that. And as managers, you must invest your own time with your team and employees concerning and their concerns for performance results. So let me quickly talk about the int on building a performance system architecture. It's just a simple architecture that I've tried to explain. You build your strategy, you have your strategy map, your portfolio of initiatives, your scorecard, all right, and your dashboard, all sitting on the employees within the organization. And then you must be able to do, this is a simple system architecture that organizations should run. All right, the allocation should build and run, and this is how we try to build it for organizations to see their thing. So you must be able to do proper cascading. All right, this is the cascading. This is an organizational scorecard. Every level, there is organizational objective, it has its own KPI, its own targets, its own action plans. The action plans becomes objective for different departments, and you build their own KPIs, targets, and action plans. And then the employees within take over those action plans. All right, so that whatever is happening here comes to affect the result here, and you can create that synchronization that changes the way things are done. That's about creating that agile system. All right, and it's about the use of, I love the use of KPI framework. So let me quickly just talk briefly about the KPI framework. But before I do that, can I get answers to this? Which of the following is a qualitative KPI? Okay, I'm seeing plenty. Interesting answers. Good answers. All right, let's move on. Let's look at answers, and I can easily just move on. It's quite simple. Answer is 4. There's no such thing as qualitative KPI. Now, that is a trap about KPIs. KPIs are quantitative in nature. all right? They are quantitative in nature, but they can measure the quality aspects of what we do. Error rate is a KPI that measures quality of production, but it has made it empirical. So in most places, they put error rate at 5%. So you're producing this bottle of water. After you do the quality check, you don't want to have more than 5% as error rate. Customer satisfaction is about the quality of your service, but we made it empirical by conducting a survey. How many of our customers are satisfied with our services? We made it empirical that way. So these are KPIs that measures quality, but it's not a qualitative KPI. There's no such thing as qualitative KPIs. All your KPIs must be quantitative. You can set this, you can set 9 for this, you can set 70% for this. You can never have 100% customer satisfaction anyways. All right. So you have made it empirical. You can see that our target. Then what did we score? Oh, we scored 60%. So what's our performance? 60 over 70 times 100 over 1. Then you then calculate your result around that angle. That's the way it works. All your KPIs must be quantitative. It's a compulsion. Must be quantitative in nature. If it's not quantitative in nature, then it's not a KPI. All right. And in building a KPI life cycle, we use these 3 stages in itself. Of course, if we do deeper training, I'll be able to explain it, or this concept more. It doesn't mean 3 months or 3 years. It depends on the size of an organization that determines it. But when you drive your performance management system using the KPI framework, it helps you to define clear expectations of each role. It's very clear what you are supposed to do and how I will measure what you are supposed to do. It reduces that subjectivity in decision making and aligns the effort of employee to corporate strategy. I've talked about that, and then brings about understanding of work process, and of course, builds performance culture within the organization. That's the system you want to achieve. If you rethink it, it becomes a philosophy. Performance becomes a philosophy of the organization in itself. All right. This is just an activity that I'm just going to run through this activity. But when we do proper training, if we call us to do proper training eventually, even though I would love the training to be physical, it's not always interesting to be virtual anyways. Of course, I'm an Abeokuta person, so I can always come around to do it. These are samples. So which ones are KPIs? Number 1, you can try and note your answers, but I will just run through it. Number 1 is a KPI because it measures satisfactions of stakeholder. That's an example of a KPI. All right. And if you're using balance scorecard, this falls in customer perspective. Is number 2 a KPI? Absolute yes. This measures your business turnover. The $ means value of turnover or amount of business turnover or value of business turnover. Oh, we have an annual turnover. It doesn't mean you're making profit. But if you want to get loan from an organization, from a bank, they're going to look at your business turnover. So, oh, our monthly turnover is 100 million. Is it 200 million? It doesn't mean you're making profit anyways, but it measures performance of the business. Number 3 is not a KPI. This is a milestone. This is a stage within a project. While number 4 is a KPI, but number 5 is not a KPI. It's just a metric. Number of employees doesn't measure anything. It's just number of employees. While number 6 is a KPI, percentage of projects delivered, and 7 is quality, is not a KPI. All right, and you can measure it by error rate, like we said, customer satisfaction, number of quality service rating. Number 8 is also a KPI, similar to number 6, but there's a difference. All right, you can have 10 projects and you've completed the 10 projects. That's a result. That's an output. But we're not saying that how many of these projects did you complete on time and within budget? That's another measurement. So if your measurements are not clear, you won't know what you want to analyze at the end of the day. Number 9 is not a KPI, it's a metric. Budget is not a KPI. Budget is just a metric. But you can also measure budget by percentage budget variance or percentage budget utilization. Those are KPIs you use in measuring budget. And number 10, is it a KPI or not? It's not a KPI. This is an objective, and this is what makes it an objective. All right. So let me show us some basic rules you must understand. This is number 10 that I've broken down here. Don't bother about that. That's going to consume a lot of time. You can do 1 hour on that one. But one thing you must know is that your objective, these are some principles you must know in performance management, that your objective, when you're writing your objective, you must always start with an action verb. An action verb starts your objective. And your KPI starts with either of these symbols. We use symbols to write KPIs. Either you're using the dollar sign, which is amount of revenue for returning customer, number, hashtag means number of customers from referrals, number of average days to resolve complaints, and percentage customer satisfaction. And your targets are figures. You can see that in my objective, there are no figures here. No figure, no figure. Your target is a standalone, it's a figure in relation. Value of revenue from returning customer, 120 million is it. Number of customers from referrals, 120 customers. Number of average days to resolve complaint, 3 days. Customer satisfaction, 75%. And your initiative starts with a noun. So I must say that in performance management system, some things are very critical. And the critical that competency that you must have. Number one, English. Number two, mathematics. Number three, critical reasoning. These three things come into play every time we work on any performance system for an organization, because all you can see here is the use of English in itself. And of course, these are some examples that we can use as activity. Okay, so let me just talk about this part. This is what we call KPI documentation. For every KPI you use in your organization, you must document it so that you can have the posture of knowledge. It's like a KPI library, all right? Or KPI dictionary, as the case may be, that you must have within your organization. And there are always about 12 to 24 fields, depending on your organization. I've just used 6 fields here. Now, for every KPI that you have, you must be able to define the KPI and the purpose of using the KPI in itself. If you're using balance scorecard, you will have perspective. If you're not using balance scorecard, you won't have this. So it depends on you. And you will have your trend decreasing or increasing. All right. If it is decreasing, there are some KPIs we call trend, either increasing, decreasing, or in range. All right. For this one is decreasing. The lower the number of days you utilize this, the better. An example of an increasing KPI is like revenue. The higher your revenue, the better the performance. So these are some examples of KPIs. Because time has been fast spent. It's already above 1 hour. These are some business analytical skills you need to have in order to build and rethink your performance management system. You need to be able to put all of this. Of course, software is always the last thing I want you to always consider. Consider using Excel most of the time. You can automate your Excel. We use that for organization, help them to build their scorecards, automate their Excel, and they can use it before they even think about the software that they want to use. And also, don't forget that data drives your performance system, and data is life in itself. So, and when you're talking about data quality, there's some basic 6 components that you consider: your accuracy, the timeliness, the completeness, the consistency, the conformity, and the uniqueness of the data. All of these are critical to your data integrity. Your data integrity must be able to satisfy these 6 main components. And then in building KPI framework, it's a simple process. Do your proper KPI selection and documentation as you're doing it. Then do your visualization and begin to gather your data. And when you gather your data, you report on it and then do analysis on it. Based on your analysis, you can take decision and come up with initiatives and learnings. And that helps you to build that performance culture within your organization. That just makes things work seamlessly. Everybody knows what has to be done without pushing them. Everybody knows that if I'm able to do this right, it's for the benefit of everybody, and I also gain in doing the right thing. So finally, I love to use this diagram. I'm sure we're all familiar with this. Most of us will be familiar with this diagram. It's a simple and machine, all right? That I say that if you pour your organizational strategy into it, which is your foundation, which you must have, that machine is your integrated performance management system. And then you must have dedicated capability. Now, in terms of dedicated capability, in your organization, it's not just the HR that needs to have this competency. For most organizations that we've dealt with, we've ensured that at least 70% of their workforce understand how to do this, and things have been working seamlessly for them. So you must have that dedicated capability in itself. That's what gives you your desired outcome. Without that, you don't get your desired outcome. On a closing note, I say that organizations without KPIs is like a Voyager without a compass. So I want to say thank you very much for your time. It's been a fast, quick, well-spent 1 hour session. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. It's been a 1 hour session of a lifetime. So I was, as the event was going on, I was racking my head and thinking, how are we going to go granular now? Because we have to go granular. What you have done today is introduction to performance management. But this is not where it ends. We want our people to be able to do this end to end, from start to finish, from the development of the strategy to the execution to the measurement of the performance. And 2 thoughts came to my mind. Number one, of course, no doubt you have to come back and go granular with us. If you are doing that and we are doing virtual, I have a rough idea of what that will be costing us. And we will be asking our people to pay. And in Ogun State, we are one united family. We don't usually like bothering our people for money. So if we ask you to come back, that means we will be asking our people to pay. The plan, the option B, is to embed this into our upcoming annual branch conference, which holds 30th and 31st of August. So we could give you we could give you the first day, 38th, if it's free. Since our people will be paying for that conference, we'll give you the first day. If it's free, if your schedule will permit you, and then whatever it is you're able to do that first day, we continue the second day and we end there. If that doesn't work, that means we will need to fix another course, a paid workshop now, where we'll go really, really granular on the subject of performance management. Because if we want to save ourselves, this is everything about an organization. So before we start taking questions, I'm sure my people are already supporting me that you have to come back, sir. What you have done today is just introduction to performance management. So before we allow you take questions, you can see the chat room, sir. Everybody is saying, come back, come back, come back. So, sir, we want to hear from you. Will you be able to have, I just called a very powerful member of the conference planning committee to request for the permission to say this, and she has given me the permission to request that you please join us on the 30th and 31st of August when we'll be having our branch conference. So over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. How would I say it? I'll have to look at my calendar. I would love to be there. No doubt about that. Well, I know that I always have, one of the things they want me in the office doing is committing myself to a time. If I don't consult with the person that's designing my calendar, so I've ended up giving most times because I always feel Like today now, I've had 3 meetings. I had one at 8:30. Virtually, I had to have it in the car, and had another one at 11. And this one was moved from 12 to 12:30 because I had another meeting at 11 o'clock that lasted 1 hour. So I will look at it. The most that would happen, like it happened for the Lagos State branch, was I appeared virtually. But that's like a presentation like this one. But if you're talking about that training, sincerely, let's talk, sir. I will look at the calendar within this week, and I will give you a tentative answer to that. I know that it's a summertime, so I don't know whether I will be in the country at that time or not. I can't say at the moment. I need to check that one too. If you really want to do this, to be candid, we need to have a win-win situation. And I say this, this is what my organization, this is what I do as a business, all right? And this is what we also use in paying employees. So we can't keep doing it for free. If we keep doing it for free, it means that we go under at the end of the day. That's what is going to happen. That the business will not exist anymore. What we can do is look at, because it's CIPM and because of my relationship with CIPM, we can then say that we'll give this extensive amount of discount for people to be able to do it. And you agree with me, and that's a sincere truth. What people pay for is what they value. When people pay for something, there is the likelihood of valuing it more. It may not be that expensive, but of course, it's not going to be that cheap either. And when we want to do that training, there's some basic things. One, I don't do more than 30. By standard, not more than 30 people in a class. If you want to really go granular and very practical, though we can then run batches. We can run 3 classes concurrently. We don't have a problem about that if we really, really want to do this. But we can do it and it doesn't cost anything. I want to give the knowledge. I want people to be experts in it. I want people to be able to do it. When we even do advisory for organization, we train them so that in most organizations, they don't come back to us. Once we build a performance management system for you, you have employees within your workforce that can even be able to develop KPIs going forward. All right, so you don't need to come back to us a lot of the time itself.